Tuesday, September 20th.
You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm.
Just Google weather with enthusiasm, and they're all going to come up.
This is also on the podcast Authentic Weather.
Many cities are breaking records from the 1890s. The world right now actually has hurricanes and potential hurricanes or remnants of hurricanes spinning all around it. And that's something which is deserving of a podcast. Those things have a major impact on weather patterns. So we could see drastic changes in our weather. They bring hot weather, they intensify hot weather by intensifying the compressional warming that takes place outside of these hurricanes, but they also suck down the cold air on the backside of these strong systems. This is especially true in regards to the tropical storm system that hit the Alaska area earlier this week. That system collided with the jet stream and it became a regular land storm, which brought down cold air, and there's even some snow. There's some chances of snow that are going to be moving into the Pacific Northwest this week. The first day of fall officially is Wednesday. This fall cold front is arriving right on time for people in the Midwest. Powerhouse storm system, a kicker trough as the National Weather Service referred to it, which is located in the Gulf of Alaska, is going to be responsible for flattening this ridge and moving it out of here as that thing pushes a specific storm system onto the coast, which is going to be responsible for the flattening of the ridge moving east. I would assume that's probably the reason Wednesday is no longer going to be part of this heat, because of that system in the Gulf of Alaska. So the heat moves to the East Coast, but it's a different version of heat. It's just regular above normal temperatures, highs mid and upper 80s perhaps, especially for places like Baltimore. Today also high temperatures close to 90 degrees in Baltimore.
We will now hear a weather synopsis under 2 minutes.
On the weather map this evening, first of all, we have some very strong thunderstorms that are currently moving through the Chicago area. This is moving right along a front, which this whole system is going to push through and bring a Canadian air mass into the area over the next few days. It could be that you could hear the thunder in the background as I speak. This Canadian cold front is then going to move across the East Coast over the next couple of days. A more significant Canadian cold front moves through by Sunday night. South flow ahead of the next Canadian cold front develops over the weekend, bringing some warmer temperatures into our area. The intense heat returns for the weekend for places in Arkansas and Memphis, Tennessee. The first Canadian cold front does not quite make it into that area, as the Atlanta, Georgia National Weather Service has pointed out that the zonal flow will only make it down to 40 degrees north latitude, which is the Chicago area. Some of the cooler air can make it 400 or 500 miles south of Chicago, but that's about it. But the second round, the second Canadian cold front is going to make it all the way down. So that's really going to be the one that's going to be producing some snow on the backside in the New England area and in the mountains of northeast New York. We also, the next storm system headed for it's called a kicker trough, which is coming out of Alaska, and that's really going to get the whole weather map moving. That arrives onto the Pacific Northwest and brings with it mountain snows. So we do have snow in some areas in the New England area. We'll have temperatures going down into the 30s.
Following is more details on all of the exciting weather. This was recorded 2 days ago, Monday, September 19th.
Many locations are breaking records from the 1890s, and it's not just one day this week where there's records from the 1890s. Actually, to say that even better, it's not even one particular year. It's two separate years from the 1890s that holds the record for many locations, including Columbia, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, it's only 1 year. That's on Wednesday, the record 97 degrees set back in the 1890s. This is Monday and Wednesday, 1890s. Wednesday's records are, it doesn't look like we're going to see record-breaking heat Wednesday anywhere because the ridge is expected to be flattening by that time, but the heat will continue Wednesday for southern locations. Temperatures are likely going to hit 100 degrees in the places where the ridge is at its peak, which probably is Oklahoma, even parts of Kansas, Arkansas as well. St. Louis will have temperatures soaring into the upper 90s or mid 90s. We'll see relatively high humidity today. In terms of Celsius, 20 degrees Celsius expected for those dew points, which is 68 degrees, and then drying out after today. Thunderstorm complexes are developing along the northern boundary of the ridge as usual. Usually in the summertime, meteorologists refer to this as the ring of fire. I haven't heard anybody refer to it as the ring of fire this time around. Perhaps because there's been a lot of dryness. However, powerful thunderstorms with forecasts of 70 mile per hour wind gusts and ping pong ball size hail do continue for places along the northern ridge. Certain locations have these storms that are just blowing up. Especially earlier today in Minnesota, we even saw storms in parts of Ohio and Indiana earlier this morning. Some of these storms may be redeveloping later in the day today. Thunderstorms moved through the Chicago area last night. Torrential rain, severe thunderstorm warnings were in effect. The question is, what's going to be happening after all this is over with? Next week, we have a strong cold front moving through for the South states. We have a strong cold front moving through, affecting the Midwest already by late Wednesday into Thursday. High temperatures in many locations only in the 60s, with overnight lows in the 40s, which is closer to normal. Actually, it's probably about 10 degrees below normal for many locations. Even after a cold front moves through on Thursday for places in Arkansas, the cold air is not really cold air. Temperatures are barely going to drop, remaining well above normal, at least above normal. Then a return to the well above normal temperatures for Saturday on Shabbos. Temperatures continue in the 90s on Sunday before a more significant cold front moves through on Monday. So this is an extended spell of summer weather for the south central states. Memphis, Tennessee, high temperatures upper 90s for the next few days. Temperatures low 90s for Sunday, mid 90s on Saturday, Shabbos.
We have a hurricane. Hurricane, it starts with an F. I don't know how to pronounce it, actually. But the hurricane's affecting, it is affecting Puerto Rico, but the hurricane itself is not reaching the Puerto Rico area. The hurricane's going to continue moving north. But on the other end of the United States, by Alaska, we also had a hurricane. We had a typhoon, which is a hurricane that forms in the Pacific Ocean. That hurricane went into much colder waters as it approached Alaska, and the thing ordinarily would have weakened. but at the same time, it collided with steering winds, strong winds, large contrast in temperatures. It got a ride on the jet stream, which in cold air, there was a pocket of cold air aloft, which really energized the thing, and the thing basically converted from a tropical system to an extra, what's the word? An extra tropical, there's some other word for it, but a non-tropical system, meaning it's not just a subtropical system, it's a type of the storms that develop here on land. The hurricanes get their energy from the warm ocean water. They get their energy from heat and humidity. The storms on land do not. They get their energy from contrast in temperature. That's not going to do it for a hurricane. But this thing changed over. Now, what's very interesting over here, a lot of things are very interesting. First of all, the impacts that it had on Alaska were equivalent to a hurricane, because it really was a hurricane. Just it wasn't officially a hurricane because it wasn't tropical, but the intensity of it was a hurricane. But more than that, we have something interesting by our scientists, from our climatologists, or at least from the Washington Post, the staff that works in the Washington Post, whoever writes the articles on climate and weather. So they love to end off every weather article that this happened because of man-made climate change. However, when it comes to this, so they also end off that way. But we have the two systems. We have the hurricane, a powerful hurricane there. We have a powerful hurricane system, a typhoon, which came off the coast of Japan. And that was the one that turned into the Alaskan storm. We have another one by Japan this week. But the one by the Alaskan storm, it says, while both what were or may have been induced by human climate change, probably they said more confidence than may have, but this is especially true in regards to the one in Alaska. So we are now making separate categories for which types of systems are being more influenced by what the world calls climate change and which ones are less influenced. So what we're saying over here really is that the ocean water temperatures are much warmer up north, and that's what's allowing these systems to go up north. That's what the thinking is. And the powerhouse systems up north, there's a higher chance of that being connected to climate change than power systems in the tropics associated with hurricanes, since that is something that has always been happening. Now, here's, however, something that we're going to speak about in just a moment, something that is a very interesting thought. This is going to be extremely interesting to some of you. Take it or leave it. But there's a theory, I don't know the name of the theory, but it has something to do with, this is really interesting. You have a low pressure system. Whenever you have a low pressure system that crosses the Bering Sea in a certain way up by Alaska, it has to cross it in a certain way, and I do not know the details. There probably are people listening to this podcast who do know the details, and perhaps I have something off on this, but this is the general idea. If it crosses the Bering Sea in a certain way, 3 weeks later, there will be the same low pressure system that will either cross the Midwest in the exact same way or the East Coast in the exact same way. And I think you could even tell whether it's going to cross the Midwest or the East Coast depending upon how it crossed the Bering Sea. Now, there's a theory like that. It's unbelievable that anybody would ever have such a such a hypothesis. But you know, once someone does have the they have the hypothesis, and you know, apparently there's enough out there for this to have legs to stand upon. I don't know If it's 100% true, 50% true, I don't know. But one thing we see is that there could be sometimes a 3-week domino effect before we feel something over here. We just went through a week of 2 powerhouse storms. More than that. We had 2 powerhouse storms, 3 really, maybe even more. But here in the United States, a powerhouse storm is in the Atlantic Ocean. It's off well to our east. A super powerhouse storm, which the European computer model brings to Nova Scotia Saturday morning, Shabbos morning, 9 a.m. However, the National Weather Service of Atlanta, Georgia, at the end of their forecast discussion, they make a warning, and they warn people, I don't know, it sounds like they're making a warning to meteorologists that this is not the way to forecast. We don't use these models. There's a different way to forecast it, and therefore, okay, they use different words than that. Perhaps I will be able to put those words on this podcast. But so to use the European computer model, something which is used to forecast the weather systems here in the United States, the regular jet stream, and just because it's accurate here, the chances are there's a different method to forecast, make accurate forecasts when it comes to these tropical systems, if we have any method at all. So really, the fact that there's some models showing that it's going to go to Nova Scotia Saturday morning, 9 a.m., it probably doesn't have much meaning. What's even more significant is this powerhouse system in Alaska. So it happened, I believe, on Sunday. So the question is, does one have the right to assume that 3 weeks from last Sunday, which takes us, by the way, to those of us that there is a Jewish holiday that night, Sukkot, Sunday night, could we assume that there will be something extraordinary that will be taking place either here in the Midwest or the East Coast in terms of a storm system? If the answer is yes, where would it be? What's it going to be? And if the answer is no, why not? What's different? What has to happen? What is this whole the 3-week domino effect? What's it all about? What's it based upon? What's it all about? Why wouldn't it happen here? Why does it happen in other situations? Did the low pressure not cross the Bering Sea? We have to look at it. Maybe there's other tropical storms which are messing up any weather pattern that would develop. But one thing I could tell you is that I think that if such a storm does develop, it would be a powerhouse storm because it's going to resemble the storm over there. And by 3 weeks from now, we're already talking about a period in the year where it actually is cold enough for it to snow. At the end of this week, there's a Canadian air mass moving into the East Coast, the New England area, and even in Northeast New York, especially the mountain areas. Not only could there be snow, there might even be some light snowfall accumulations. We're also getting our first band of snow moving into the Northwest Pacific this week. So the snow season is kind of starting, especially in the northern latitudes and the higher elevations, at least a little bit. We're starting to get cold enough air on the backside of these, when a system is strong enough. The backside of these storm systems are now starting to produce snow. At the same time, we have like full force summer. I don't even know if you should say the word like. We have, in terms of the weather pattern and in terms of the high pressure ridge, the dome of heat, it's a powerhouse, a total powerhouse. The days are 12 hours long. The angle of the sun is much less. The angle of the sun here in Chicago, at least, is hitting 45 degrees, totally different back in June when it was 70 degrees in the sky. We're going way, way down over here. And we have places which are on the latitude of Chicago that went into the 90s. In the Dakotas, it went into the triple digits yesterday. There were places in the Dakotas that hit triple digit heat on Monday. Record highs were reported. Wichita, Kansas reported a record yesterday. We have very, very intense stuff going on over there. Very warm, as usual, I guess. Very warm water temperatures continue over the Persian Gulf, producing hot water. Temperatures are in the low to mid 90s. And if you find sometime in some sources, when you look up St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, some of the forecasts show daily highs of 83 and daily lows of 82. Other forecast shows highs near 90, lows near 80. Okay, probably it's for different parts of St. Thomas. But what we want to say over here is that the National Weather Service of Puerto Rico informs us that excessive heat could be developing in the northern parts of Puerto Rico today. And in one source, it indicated that the heat index may hit 107. I can't find that in any forecast, but it really was forecasted by local meteorologists. So if that is to happen, I really believe it is strongly connected to the hurricane. We know Tom Skilling has pointed out that hurricanes cause intense sinking of air miles away from it, which leads to compressional warming, and temperatures become much warmer than usual. And that could very well be what the northern parts of the Puerto Rico island could be experiencing for today. Let's take a trip to Arizona. This past summer, Phoenix, Arizona, Yuma, Arizona, there was no shortage of humidity this past summer. But they also saw plenty of days of just hot and dry heat. The moisture is coming back, and it's coming back quickly. The computer models indicate tomorrow, today is Tuesday, I think. Tomorrow, Wednesday, by tomorrow night, dew points in the upper 70s, 79-degree dew points, are a possibility for Yuma, Arizona, according to some computer models, and dew points of about 70, even 74 degrees, according to the North American Mesoscale model. And it's there for Wednesday night, especially Thursday. We dry out by Shabbos, by Saturday, but it's really high humidity, very oppressive stuff. In fact, the dew point charts for Yuma, Arizona, for many, many hours, where the dew point hits 77, it's on par with San Juan, Puerto Rico. So we're dealing with high humidity, and there could be some torrential downpours associated with that, with thunderstorms. There's This moisture is different than the monsoon. From my understanding, this is not the monsoon. I don't believe this is the monsoon. The monsoon is when you have a high pressure that sets itself up over the four-cornered area, and then a flow off that high pressure comes into the Gulf of Mexico and brings moisture from the Gulf of Mexico into Arizona. This system, we have moisture coming in from the Gulf of California, and that's why this time around, Yuma, Arizona is actually going to be more humid most of the time than Phoenix, Arizona, since Yuma is closer to that flow than Phoenix is. I'm certain that there are plenty of weather events that we did not cover. I could tell you there are some phenomenal, deep low pressure systems towards the South Pole right now. Stuff that producing bitterly cold temperature. I wonder if that's the polar vortex down there.
Other cities across the world, well, London just has everything's normal, chances for showers every day for the next week with highs in the 60s, lows in the 50s. New York City, things look normal. And in general, in the East Coast, there hasn't really been much contrast in temperatures at all over the past few months, especially for New York City. The real mind-boggling stuff has confined itself to the Midwest, and especially the South Central Plains, the Pacific Northwest, and also especially the desert Southwest. And Europe, once again, the heat wave in Europe as well was something totally phenomenal.
And we also have some intense heat that continues pretty close to Spain, but especially Baghdad, but over there it's more typical. Well, for now, I'll be signing off. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest. I wish everyone a great day. Enjoy the weather. Most of the country, by the way, actually has beautiful weather. Here in Chicago, this whole heat, we kind of escaped the heat, but just to our west, they're dealing with at least only a one day for our immediate west. But enjoy the weather, and thank you for listening. And in case there's not another podcast before Rosh Hashanah, Achsiva v'chasima toiva. I wish everyone a happy, healthy, good year, new year. And enjoy your weekend.